Hello and welcome to the swing. As always, it's your boy HK, and I am joined by my co host after a little bit of a hiatus, after a little bit of a sabbatical, after a little bit of a head shave. That guy Owais is here with HK to go ahead and talk about everything that's going on in the NBA world with the swing. For all who's been asking, for all who've been questioning as to why the swing hasn't been around. Life just got a little bit busy as things happen to come in the way, but we are glad to be back live, not only with our page on YouTube, our page on Facebook, but also back on with Sports Trends, where we get to go live at least once to twice a week and give you all that's going on with the NBA world. But that guy always talk to me, man. What's been going on? How you doing?
No, I'm really happy. I'm glad to be back. Unfortunately, I hadn't gotten a chance to really catch the beginning of the season as much as I wanted to. But now that, time's freed up a little bit, finally getting to watch some games and what incredible games that we've been witnessing. Amazing dunks, amazing highlights, some bear hugging apparently that are supposedly fights. With the French, of course, always involved. But yeah, just a lot of fun things, and I'm really excited to be back. I'm really excited to get this going, man. We're back into the swing of things, if you know what I'm saying.
There you go. Back into the swing of things is absolutely right. And thanks very much to Noreen, our viewer
Shout
here,
out to
bucking the S
Noreen.
back. Glad to be back on here. But as that guy always said, we are barely 10 games into the NBA season for most teams. And we're really starting to see, some of those early jitters start to come around. There's no doubt that a number of stars in this league have been adjusting to the way the rules have been, let's say, tweaked as far as the NBA season is concerned, as far as how free throws, how fouls, and how in general what referees are now considering to be contact, not as a basketball play, to not be called as fouls. In many ways, I feel like it's gone a bit too far on one end, and you're just straight up not calling things. But I know that guy Owais has been pretty happy with how things are being called nowadays.
I mean, we gotten so used to this ugly situation where the offensive guy does creative, stupid things to get free throws. And someone has been doing that for at least 6 to 7 years of
Hmm.
just pure, just stupid offense. Let's get to the free throw line and then get 40 points off of that. And I said to Harris 3 years ago, I said, this is just unfair. Without, don't get me wrong, very talented player, but without these free throws, he's not as great as you think, my friend. And a lot of these free throws come from garbage calls. And I'm glad karma has come to a balance because James Harden has been struggling pretty early on in the season. And to be fair, unfairly most of the time, but that's karma, my friend, for doing some stupid tactics,
I
which
mean,
had caught on in the league.
look, there had to be some balance of it, but frankly, they just couldn't defend James Harden, so they decided to see how they could cut his legs off. But even then, tonight went ahead and dropped 39 and 12 on the New Orleans Pelicans in a roller coaster of a game where the Brooklyn Nets, who are obviously dealing with their own Kyrie situation, are still going about and figuring out how it is that they can get themselves back on to their feet, back on their path to what they're hoping is going to be a walk towards a deep run in the playoffs, if not all the way. But speaking of teams that looked like they wanted to be in a situation to be able to go all the way, but are now at the risk of being full on dethroned as the King is out for a month with an oblique strain, out indefinitely actually, but we're being told that it's going to be at least a month. The Los Angeles Lakers are a team that we already had question marks about. This, from the beginning of the year, gave shades of when Steve Nash, Dwight Howard went ahead and joined the LA Lakers back in 2013. And it just seemed like, hey, on paper, if the team could get together, if the team could go ahead and stay healthy, and if the team could perform up to the mark that its talent level suggested, that they could be in the run to be a contender. But what we are instead seeing is that the LA Lakers are absolutely just struggling to be able to get any offense together. But at 7-5, they're still finding ways to be able to win. Anthony Davis, for all the times that he goes back in the locker room every single game, is still finding ways to be more dominant. And your boy Carmelo seems to have found a second, third, is this a fourth wind at this point in his career? What's going on with Melo, man?
Don't call him my boy, because I'll be honest with you, I'm appreciative of him, of this version and this iteration of him, because his role is pretty obvious. Prior to that, not a big fan of Carmelo, so don't put me in that name, okay? But I will say that the LA Lakers are struggling. They're struggling hard. But you're right, Carmelo's play of late has been incredible. Like, he's still taking those very high level difficult shots, but they're just falling at the right times and very, very efficiently. So that's something that I genuinely find to be very entertaining. Anthony Davis, if he, again, like you said, if he's not like looking like he's out for the season every 5 plays, or he's falling on the ground making a fool of himself, they're finding ways. And a lot of people had a lot of criticism about Russell Westbrook. That was the main thing. Everybody's like, "Oh, Westbrook is in the house now. It's going to be terrible." And quite frankly, it did look very, very terrible early. But you have to understand, these are all veterans. These are all guys that have been there, done that, right? So for them to finally mesh together, it's going to take some time. A lot of these guys love the ball in their hands. And that's the problem, because you have 4 or 5 guys, like they say, too many cooks in the kitchen. However, because they are so talented, each and every one of them, despite how it looks on the offensive end right now, give it time. Give it time. And honestly, LeBron's injury, like, no one wants to see LeBron injured, honestly, but might be good for the team. And the reason why I say that is because it gives the opportunity for Westbrook to gel with each player individually, and they can really start to create offense in ways that works for everyone. And then when you add, a LeBron in to that mix, it's still a very, very scary team. So I wouldn't count them out. I wouldn't be all, "Oh, they're not gonna get past the first round. Oh, they're all." Stop the talk. These are all great, great players. It's gonna figure itself out. I don't know. What do you think?
Like, as you said, it's just one of those where we'll have to wait and see. The LeBron factor is always a different thing. I mean, once it gets to the playoffs, we know exactly what LeBron offers. We know exactly what Westbrook, Carmelo, Anthony Davis, these guys have offered in the past. But more so than that, it's their surprising bench depth that has actually been a pretty good factor for them early on in the season, between Malik Monk, between Austin Reeves, who
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, as a rookie, who had been really, really showing some flashes of being the next Caruso, but has now
Mm-hmm.
found himself out for the next 2 weeks as well. So it's just one of those things where they've got a lot of veteran strength, they've got a lot of veteran depth, but it's going to be about their capability to be able to go deep into the postseason with the hopes that their main man can get back. But speaking of a team that is absolutely without their main man, but yet still continues to find ways to win tough games, and that's the other team sitting in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Clippers are also sitting at 7-4 to start the season. Paul George, who, I mean, we all know exactly what the narrative against Paul George is, right? Playoff P, push off P, whatever you want to go ahead and say, well, he'll find ways to not perform up to the level. But the reality is that he's done a lot more than that, not only in those games, but in this early season. If we're talking about guys that could potentially be in that early running for MVP level basketball, Paul George has been doing that, and he's been absolutely carrying this LA Clippers team that obviously is missing Kawhi, has also been lost as far as their depth is concerned, because Serge Ibaka still is finding his way back after a mysterious back injury that, you know, went on for who knows how long. There was no updates, no nothing. It was like no one knew what was going on. Now he's finally found his way back onto the floor in limited minutes at the moment. But it's really been, in my mind, the rediscovery, the rejuvenation of the pair of Eric Bledsoe and Reggie Jackson that have really been able to go ahead and complement Paul George and give them a pretty solid 1-2 punch to be able to get themselves out in these tough scenarios because, as we know, those guys can defend. It's all about where the offense is coming from. And what do you
100%.
say about the Clippers? Because I've been actually pretty impressed with what they've been doing so far.
Yeah, I mean, what when we talked about the playoffs last year and we were talking about the Clippers, Paul George was instrumental in every single series, every closeout, every time they were down and everybody counted them out. Nope, Paul George took control and he carried the crap out of them. But another player who I argue was probably just as good as Paul George in that series or any of those series was Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson has been instrumental to the success of the LA Clippers, both on the defensive and offensive side. He's averaging about like 18 points a game already, right? Which is insane because you wouldn't have thought that a guy like that would come in and do this. Because remember, he was kind of just like a pickup last season during like, what was it, the trade deadline or something, where pretty much wherever he wasn't really doing so well. It wasn't a good fit. Comes here, plays with the dogs, and I'm telling you, comes out on fire. Now, one thing I absolutely love about Paul George, the disrespect has to stop. I know he's a meme. I get it. He's been shot. Game-winning shots have been shot on him forever, and he always has his persona of playoff P and this and that, blah 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 blah. But what he said last season was that his shoulder injuries. Remember, he had both his shoulders worked on, right? They were destroyed. And so for like 2 to 3 seasons, he had to recover from that. Both your shoulders. Imagine being one of the best players in the league and then having shoulders that just don't work. That's where your shots come from. That's where your dribbles come from. And there's a lot of recovery with that. And sometimes after surgery, dude, your shot form might not be the same. The way you raise your arms, like it might not be the same. It might not feel the same anymore, right? So to restructure everything and then finally get back to a place of eliteness, which I always loved Paul George. When he was on Indiana, honestly, didn't think there was a more like quiet, but also like packaged player, like offensively. I just loved him. And he's showing it. He showed it last year. He showed it in the season. He's showing it this year. And he showed it in the playoffs. And especially what I want you guys to know, look at how many times the Clippers have been kind of behind. And then they still managed to come back, even in the regular season games. And who's it spearheaded by? Paul George making clutch shot after clutch shot after clutch shot. So Paul George, he's on my fantasy team for a reason. I kept him. Yes, I did. Thank you. I want to say thank you and keep going. And I hope you have the most success this season. And
of course
Reggie
you do.
Jackson, please continue your domination. We love it. We love to see it. Who cares about Kawhi? He left Toronto. I don't care about him anymore. Okay.
But on that note, they're hoping he will be back as far as the postseason's concerned. Pretty much been announced that he's going to be out for what is the remainder of the regular season. Not a surprise. It pretty much was known. But if the LA Clippers can continue to find ways to come back in these games, and you're right, they have had a number of games already in the season in which they've been down late in the third, early in the fourth quarter, only to have a number of rallies to be able to get themselves back. And
Seriously.
it's all about those runs. As they say, NBA is a game of runs, but there's only a few teams in the league that can make runs like the Golden State Warriors. And what a run have they been on to be able to start the season. Now, I do want to give this as a caveat because anyone will go ahead and look at the standings and be like 10-1. They've been doing incredible, which they have. Don't get me wrong. But they have also been the beneficiary of by far the easiest schedule in the league to be able to start the season, playing pretty much teams that have averaged around 40% wins for the last year up till now. And really, it's going to be in the next 2 to 3 weeks that they're really going to start to see real playoff opponents coming through. So that's where, some of this Golden State early flowers that are being thrown on them is going to be tested. But don't let that take away from the fact that even though Klay Thompson has not returned as of yet, and that isn't as far away as we had otherwise thought, we're hearing that he may be coming back within the next month and a half. That could be
Yeah.
a huge boost to what the Golden State Warriors have been doing early in the season. But talk to me about what Chef Curry has been serving up in this early season, because even when he's struggling with a shot, as he has been in a few of the games this season, he is just finding ways to contribute and to still have the Golden State Warriors cook you as a whole.
Seriously. Like, he just finds ways. He's such a talented player. And, you know, when you see these incredible games, these types of shots, the way he's moving on the court, on and off the ball, and the way that the team supports him in that respect too. But even when they're not supporting him and he just has to do it all on his own, he's scoring ridiculous shots, finding the right man, making the right play, making it difficult for defenses. And that's beautiful. We love that about him. I think he's averaging about 27 points right now. Not shooting the best, but you know, I want to give a shout out to two other people. Draymond Green has, again, been instrumental in all of this. Why? Because he is such a good facilitator in his own right. And let's give a shout out to actually two more people, please. First one, Andrew Wiggins. Thanks for taking the vaccine, because you're playing great. You're playing so good. And if there's anything, go watch that Minnesota and Golden State Warriors game from the other day and see the way he posterized his ex-teammate Cat.
Not
like he
once,
was a dog.
but twice.
Twice. Amazing. And then your boy, he drafted this guy, didn't know anything about him until he started balling out. My boy, Jordan Poole. You know? Talk to me about these guys, please.
Take a splash in the nearest pool. No, Jordan Poole was always the guy that the Warriors had singled out as being a development project for them. Even in the last year where they clearly were finding him struggling at the 3-point line. But it's just one of those where if you see a guy shoot, if you see the kind of form that he is putting up there, you can see that this boy's jumper is wet. And Jordan Poole takes a splash as a mini splash brother when you go ahead and actually get to watch him. He's great off the dribble. He's going ahead and putting up buckets for this team.
Sorry. Timeout. Technical on you. Why? Because you're a stats guy. You don't do eye test type of stuff.
That ain't true. That ain't true.
This is the first time I heard you talk some sense, Horace. This is amazing.
I don't see where you're bringing out this. No. The stats come as a function. No. See, here's the issue here. No one has ever said that the stats and the eye test don't go together. The reality is that he who is able to stay on the floor because they are a statistical benefit to their team are going to be the ones who are actually able to show you the stuff that passes your eye test. But on that note, Jordan Poole, though, it's just one of those things where he is always going to be benefiting from the fact that Klay was out. But more so than that, they like the fact that he is able to jump into these lineups in which Andrew Wiggins is able to switch over to the 2 because he has the size to be able to play the 2 and the 3 while being able to just be an absolute menace off ball. We talk about how much Steph Curry is so nasty off ball, right? Always on the move. He never sits around anywhere. It's just 24/7. Every defender is going to get their entire month's worth of cardio in a matchup against Steph Curry. Jordan Poole is a very similar kind of player. You're seeing it off there. You know, he's got that Movember mustache going. He looks like he fit in NBA Street Volume 2 from back in the late 90s to early 2000s. But this boy can ball. And he is just
100%.
At this moment playing with confidence. And even in games where his shot is off, where he's not scoring, you can just see it in him that he just believes that the next one will go. And frankly, you find that it does. So for the Golden State Warriors to have found that level of confidence within themselves, despite everything that's been going on, despite whatever schedules there is, you beat who's in front of you. And that comes from professionalism, consistency, and hard work. And for the Golden State Warriors to do this early on in the season, very excited for them. Love watching their games regardless, and to be able to have them do this and also go ahead and be putting up these kind of dubs is great for the Dubs.
No doubt. I love how you did that. That's 10 out of 10.
Yeah, right?
First of all, eye test and stats and these great puns. You got to miss this guy, HK, right?
There you go.
Come on, chat. Let us know. But speaking of which, there's another team that really surprised me this season. Now, Golden State has a system that works really, really well for them. And it opens up guys. And again, Steph Curry, one of the greatest players to ever play. Now we move on to a team on the East End that made some big moves last season on the trade deadline and then picked up a guy by the name of DeMar DeRozan over the offseason. And the GOAT himself Alex Caruso. And this changes the entire identity of this franchise that we know as the Chicago Bulls. What fun, fantastic basketball. And they picked up Lonzo Ball. Now, a lot of people had given up on Lonzo. I for sure don't know why. You take a look at what he's doing on this team. I think out of everyone that's playing right now, DeMar's been playing great. You could argue it's MVP caliber at times. Zach LaVine. Vucevic is Vucevic. Caruso's Caruso. And a few other guys playing their role the right way. Hey, don't disrespect Caruso. Caruso is actually one of the most versatile guys you can have
The
and the hardest
headband
workers
man who
in
is
the room.
leading the league in steals to start off the season. But
yeah,
no, you're absolutely right.
Sorry, I'm just going to finish off with Lonzo Ball is the heart of the team. He makes things happen, and he brings that juice, that swagger that this team so desperately needed. And look, they are successful. 8-3, second in the East. Everybody playing very, very smoothly. Talk about it, please.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Look, the Chicago Bulls have absolutely been one of those early season surprises. And, the offense you probably could have found where it was going to be coming from, right? You've got three guys on the team that are legit 20-point per game scorers. And more so than that, unlike a team like Philly, where those scorers were very much bunched in the same kind of spot, you've got guys who are strong in different areas over there and actually have games that complement each other quite well. So the offense was never something that I was, super worried about as far as the Chicago Bulls is concerned. But it's on the defensive end that they have really been an absolute tear as far as the season's concerned. No one would have thought that the Chicago Bulls would have been a top 6 defensive team in the league to go alongside being a top 5 offense. Definitely a surprise as far as that's concerned. And they're doing all of this while being one of the slowest teams in the league as far as pace is concerned. So basically, what it's coming down to is that the way they're playing, and this has always been something that people have forgotten or overlooked about Nikola Vucevic and those Orlando Magic teams that he was on. When he was the anchor on those kind of squads, he has the capability to be able to force defenses to not only fight him and be at his pace on the offensive end, but on the other side, the way that he is able to anchor on the inside kind of allows the other perimeter players to be able to have their defensive matchups be playing at their pace. And that has allowed the Chicago Bulls to put up games in which they may not be putting up massive scoring numbers on their own, but they're doing it efficiently because they're making their possessions count. But the way that they're throwing offenses on the other side off their game, throwing them the Carusos, throwing them the Vucevic, and frankly, DeMar DeRozan has also been a much improved defensive player this year, where there aren't any open liabilities for them to go ahead and get thrown out. Now, I don't necessarily believe in them in terms of making a big splash as far as the East is concerned when it comes to playoff time, when it comes to long run. But for a long time, the Chicago Bulls have had so much misery, so much underperformance, so much injury to be able to go ahead and deal with to actually make some noise. And for them to have the team that they have now, there's something to that. And we've talked about in the past with the Toronto Raptors, how it's not about just championship or bust. It's not just about, having a team full of superstars to go ahead and be like, hey, we're here to compete for the ring. But there is value to be made in building a culture of going ahead and getting yourself back on the horse, as they say, making yourself a relevant franchise again, getting that playoff experience underneath your belt. Because a guy like Zach LaVine, right? A guy like Lonzo Ball now, who, as you've said, has completely transformed his game from a guy who was an absolute just, useless 3-point shooter, had this weird Marcus Camby like release and just was, I don't know what you could say. There was so much broken about his offensive game that he has gone and revamped himself to this level to not only become one of the most efficient 3-point shooters in the league, but also one of those guards that has the capability to put up highlight blocks on a night in night out basis while also being just an absolute terror
Seriously.
on ball. It's nasty.
Yeah.
Like I said, Lonzo isn't a traditional point guard. He's not going to be out there racking up double digit assists. That's not really what he's doing. if anything, he's pretty much become what Patrick Beverley wished he would become at his absolute peak. That terror on the defensive end, the capability to be able to stretch the floor, and also to get in your face defensively without necessarily having to deal with the technical side of things. So, Alonzo, hats off, salute to him,
Hats
and the
off. Just
Chicago
not
Bills
my
has been
hat right
rested.
now.
Yeah, it's not your hat right
No,
now.
not right
Now
now.
we're gonna
It's
have to
too
keep
bright
that for
out
the
here.
end. That's MVP level.
That's MVP level. But yeah, another thing I really want to quickly mention is the fact that, honestly, I did not think this would happen because I wasn't sure how they were going to generate the offense based off of having Zach LaVine and DeMar being more volume type of guys. That's just, and also mid range type of guys. So I'm like, how do they space the floor out? But Vucevic, you're right, makes all the difference. Drawing guys in, letting those guys do their thing, setting good screens so they can have the mismatch. There's a whole lot to it. But shout out to the Chicago Bulls collectively because I think they are the best team in the league in terms of turnovers, which is huge. When you slow the game down and when you play the right way, chances are you will have less turnovers. Not like the Toronto Raptors over here where we're running around like mice. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. But yeah, those are some of the teams. And maybe one more team that was actually a little bit of a surprise, actually a huge surprise, is Washington Wizards. And they are right now sitting first in the Eastern Conference. And you want to just quickly talk about that and the
Do
Kuz
I though?
show?
Do I?
I
I
mean,
want to talk about the Washington Wizards? But it looks like I'm going to have to because the Washington Wizards have just thrown away the book as far as early season expectations are concerned. And no doubt on a team that had Bradley Beal, who, for better or for worse, seems to be committed over to the franchise, and for a team that is dealing with its own injuries. Remember Thomas Bryant, their starting big man, and also probably their bright spot over the last couple of years, has still been out. Rui Hachimura, their rookie, their big pickup from the last couple of years as well, also been out. But in the spare parts that they have gone ahead and brought as a result of the Russell Westbrook trade, I went ahead and sent him over to the LA Lakers. Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell,
Trez.
between those guys and Spencer Dinwiddie as the third part to go ahead and get added on, this Washington offense at this moment is just purring. And it is, I don't want to say, a flash in the pan because we don't know how it's going, but at this moment, they are just looking just ridiculous as far as the way that their offense is flowing. On offensive rating, they're 14th in the league, but what it comes down to is they are able to sustain the kind of pain on their depth is concerned, yet still be able to come back and be an absolute force. And for them to pull off 8-3 against teams that were above or at 500 on previous years, I mean, they have had some signature wins so far. Obviously, opening night walked into Toronto and went ahead and absolutely just abused them, which was something that I don't think anyone would have saw coming. But since then, they've beaten the Pacers, they've beaten the Celtics, they've beaten the Nets, they've beaten the Bucks, and all of these have been just games in which they have taken it deep and then pulled away in the clutch, which is not necessarily something that you would have associated with the Washington Wizards in the past because they've always been a high octane offense, a high volume shooting team in the years that they've done any sort of well as far as their offense is concerned. But now on a team that probably is less offensively capable as they've had in previous years, they have found other ways to be able to get back. And with guys like Montrezl Harrell being the ultimate just garbage time bucket, and I don't mean in the sense of garbage time that the games are gone, but put your lunch pail,
Head
blue
down.
hat on.
Boom.
The guy is out there to work, and we've always known that about Montrez. Undersized otherwise for a center, but you wouldn't know that from the way he plays, right? He plays big. He's always in your face, and he's always looking to get under your skin. And to his credit, he's done that. He's stepped up in the time that Thomas Bryant continues to be away. Daniel Gafford was expected to be the guy that would become pretty much their focus on, the big man side is concerned. But it's been Montrez who has come and essentially gotten himself back on track. He had a bit of an off year when he was there with the Lakers, didn't really know where his usage was. It was getting to a point where people were like, is Trez washed? Is Trez done? But clearly, as he's shown he's putting others to sleep, but he's keeping you awake with Montrezl Harrell and his sick
Chris,
early season.
sorry, TK. Having to talk about Washington is such a drag. I am so sorry. But no, you're right, dude. One of the most interesting things about this team is how much hate they had coming into the season. Like, oh, Kuzma's trash. This team's going to be trash. And quite frankly, like, I will say one thing. Despite the success, I don't want to take anything away from the Washington Wizards. However, I will say it is still very early in the season, so teams are still figuring stuff out. The systems, how like the chemistries and all that kind of jazz. So they may be hot right now, but do I think that this is a sustainable hot? Absolutely not. I think these guys are probably going to fall out of a playoff position this year, and time will come. Just wait till the better teams start to build that chemistry and get back with that engine running. It's game over for Washington. But still, for this time, enjoy your success. If I'm wrong, I still don't apologize because that's how I feel.
That's just how he is.
That's just how I feel. But Kuzma, shout out to you. I always like Kuzma's game. I know it's stupid at times, but he's a scorer. He's a scorer, and he wasn't given the opportunity as much in LA to create like he should. Those types of guys, you don't really contain. You don't tell them to play a certain way. You just tell them, go out there, get some buckets, and don't think about how you get them. And that's what he's been given as an assignment in Washington, and it's worked. So anyway, those are kind of the teams we wanted to talk about today. I know that we're trying to structure each episode to have kind of a break in the middle, not necessarily a break, but like a little change of topic, because there is something that the NBA does these days with the, I guess, it's not really crypto, but like NFT space called NBA Top Shot. And Harris is someone who's very, very dedicated to the art of NFTs, the hustle of NFTs. And he always, always, always is, educating us about it. And might be a lot of money to be made, and if not, it's just something that you can have as a fan that's just really cool. And Harris, why don't you take it away and talk about it?
Yeah, and obviously there's an absolute wealth of information to be able to get into, and that's just something that we can speak about in bits and pieces as we go through these multiple episodes. But for those who are not aware, NBA Top Shot is essentially the new generation of collectibles. The idea of what people used to love having as far as trading cards were concerned, that MJ rookie card that is worth who knows what godly amounts of money. But more so than that, the idea of fans to be able to show their fandom. And that's exactly what NBA Top Shot is being able to do. So if you go on NBATopShot.com, you go ahead and get yourself registered. You get a starter pack of 3 moments, which is what they call them instead of cards. That's what gets sent over to you. And essentially you collect that. You collect them, you build up in whatever way that you find that you like. What NBA Top Shot loves to say is that collect what you love. So there's rares, there's legendaries of pretty much any player in the NBA. Me, I'm a huge Kyle Lowry fan, as you guys all know. So he was the first moment that I actually went ahead and bought, and he's also the first rare moment that I've got in my pack as well. So find the guys that you love. They have lots of great moments. They're only still in their early stages overall in the long run. I mean, they've had about 2 years under their belt, so they've got a little bit of experience as far as that's concerned, but still in beta, still lots of opportunity, lots of growth, and just lots of fun to be able to have. So we're going to spend some more time as we get along, but this is, as I said, a part of the swing and a part of NBA that is very exciting to me personally, but also something that I believe can have a lot of shared utility for everyone who watches the swing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about it. One of the cool moments that I have is that Dame Lillard shot against Houston a few years back in the playoffs when he officially crowned himself as Dame time for the first time and said the bye-byes to the Houston Rockets. But anyway, so hopefully every week we can supply you with some interesting, I guess, content or knowledge about Top Shot. With the showcase challenges and stuff like that. Harris will be a great resource for you guys to learn from. But anyway, then we're going to come to the last little third of our show, which is when we're going to talk about the Toronto Raptors, but also maybe 1 or 2 games on the weekend that we're really excited about. So let's start with the Toronto Raptors, and I think we play tomorrow against the Detroit Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see about the Toronto Raptors this year, and what do you like? What do you not like? And thoughts?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it's been a weird season as far as our home and away records are concerned. That's the first thing that pops out to you, right? The Raptors have had, apart from a couple of tough opponents in general at home, they just underperformed to be able to start the season on that end. Don't know if it's early season jitters. Obviously, we were missing Pascal Siakam for a good bit of that, only now returning, not playing back to backs just as of yet, but he will be back suited up for the Saturday game against the Detroit Pistons. But the biggest thing that you're seeing as far as the Toronto Raptors is concerned is just the absolute heart and hustle that this team has on the defensive end, because the offense has been a struggle. There's no two ways about it early on in the season. And that was always a question that was going to be there as far as the Toronto Raptors are concerned this year. Who is going to be that guy to be able to not only get you consistent buckets, but with Kyle Lowry's departure over to the Miami Heat, there was also questions about how the offense is going to be run. How is it going to
Mm-hmm.
be moving around? How is it going to be flowing? And it's nobody's surprise. Fred VanVleet, who isn't a natural point guard, right? He's a shooting guard, a combo guard by and large, but has started to show maturity and has started to show growth on that end. And you're seeing that as these games go on. I mean, he had a 17 assist game already earlier in this year, but funny enough, I actually think that was probably one of the worst games he played this entire year. He just had turnover after turnover, couldn't get his shot going whatsoever. But the idea of being able to get an offense running in the half court has always been a concern as far as Toronto is going. But Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes, the rookie. If you ask Chuck, he's already the rookie of the year. But
Hey,
at this point, has just been an absolute revelation as far as the Toronto Raptors are concerned. I mean, look, I'll be honest. I spent a lot of time watching him as soon as as soon as the draft pick was there. People were talking about Jalen Suggs. I actually wasn't all that high on Jalen Suggs. I was happy to be able to get another switchable wing who is able to shore up the Toronto Raptors defensively. Because if the Raptors have shown anything up until now, is that if someone has even an inkling of a shot, they can fix it. OG Anunoby, not a great shooter, not a great offensive player for the first couple of years of his career. Look at him now, and you'd be like, holy crap, what kind of transformation is that? But it's because he already had those physical assets in place. But just how far ahead of the curve and how far ahead of schedule has Scotty Barnes been? And that has been just absolutely unreal to be able to see.
I mean, you're talking Scotty Barnes, and I'm really impressed. One thing that I enjoy about Scotty Barnes in particular, most of the guys that the Toronto Raptors have drafted have just become like they're hard workers and really, really good at basketball, but not in the sense of IQ. Never thought that they saw the game in a particularly high level fashion. Fred VanVleet's not that guy. Siakam's definitely not that guy. OG, no, no, sir. However, when I see Scotty Barnes, the thing that I like about him is that he understands the game. He sees the game in a way that is much like a Draymond, a Kyle Lowry, where it's like I know what we need to do in this particular situation, and he's still very, very young. So it's like you could have a creative, or you could have like a set play, but the set play might not be working, and he can adjust in real time to be able to figure out what we can do to get a bucket at this current moment. And that's something that's so rare. And another thing is that he somehow has this mid range. I don't know where it came from, but it's working. And OG's also developed that, so it's been really nice to see. So that's a plus side. I also want to give a huge shout out to two other guys, Buju Banton. Shout outs to Kevin Buju Banton. He looks good, guys. Like
Delano, yep.
sound defensively. Delon, yeah, he looks so good defensively, but also, again, another lengthy guy, and he does have shot. He has a shot. He just doesn't use it as much because he's not given that sort of role. And also, forgive me if I say his name incorrectly. Svi Mikhailuk. Svi Mikhailuk? Mihailuk.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Let's go with Svi for three.
Svi for three. So this guy is the definition of off the bench production. And what I mean by that is he hustles on the defensive end, has had a few games where he's had really crucial stops, crucial points, can rise, dunk, shoot the three, does everything that you need, but he does it without really being noticed by anyone, right? Which is huge. And also, let's be honest, man. Um, he really brings the team together. I've seen a lot of posts on the social media pages of these Toronto Raptors where they're shouting out the boy, you know? So good for him. Good for him. Really proud of him. And the only criticism I have of the team collectively is again the turnovers. And the turnovers comes from them not really understanding how to create the ball. I mean, not create the ball, but create a play that can get a bucket. So you'll oftentimes see Fred VanVleet either rushing, over dribbling, and usually I used to blame it on him, and I still do kind of. But I also notice a lot of the time we're always on the perimeter, right? And we're not really moving. And so when that happens, it forces that isolation sort of situation. But a moment that kind of gave me some hope. It was last night. Was it last night or the night before? Where Toronto played, who they played? Philly,
Yep,
and
last
OG
night.
Anunoby in the deep, you know, dribbles in, gets three guys against him, set play. Scotty Barnes has that backdoor screen, and Freddie's open. Trey, open shot. So having the ability to create something out of nothing like that, and getting shots like really, really late and clutch shots, that's huge. And we've seen the other end of that against, let's say, like a Cleveland just collapsing. So it's a great season for us to appreciate what we already have and see those guys develop. But the new guys, just see them blossom. Really, really see them blossom. And so playoffs, I think, is actually something that we will have this year. And God willing, everyone's healthy. Uh, this team looks like they're adapting and learning, and I love that about them.
Yeah, and look, it can't be understated that despite whatever the record is showing so far, having them back at Scotiabank Arena has been huge as far as the energy is concerned. I mean, the crowd obviously missed them 650 days or whatever it was without a game at home. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. Yeah, that was come on, man. But back where they belong, back at home, and it's going to start to come along. As you said, it's one of those where playoffs look like they're back within reach because you can see that the right things are being done. And I mean, more so than just the playoffs, it's about the process, right? You're looking at these guys that are going to be around for a number of this is our next generation. This is our next youth level movement that's coming. And it's why we made moves like getting Gary Trent here for Norman Powell, right? 3 years, 4 years younger, and Gary Trent, who I wasn't necessarily I had no problem with the trade or any of that happening. I actually really like Gary Trent, but obviously everyone was enamored with Norman Powell for good reasons. But for him to come out this year and just be such a ridiculous on-ball defender, you can just see that
Oh yeah.
level of hustle that has taken the next step. It's almost as if Nick Nurse went and challenged him, where it's like, look, man, we want to keep you on the floor. We want to have you there as a shot creator, a clutch time performer for us, but you got to go ahead and step up on this level. And man, GTJ, Gary Trent Jr.,
That
boy,
boy.
the boy has stepped up. The boy has stepped up big this year, and it is exciting to watch this Toronto Raptors team. And that's what it comes down to. The results will make themselves, but as a fan, on a personal level, who's watching this team night in, night out at the arena, paying hard-earned money to have season tickets out
Mm.
there, you want to be able to see that. And that's really what it comes down to. And that's what's got me excited about the Toronto Raptors because everything else will come, but memories don't go away. And that's what these guys are creating.
So really quickly, not much more to. I don't want to dive too deep into the game. I know it's already been like about 45 minutes, but who you got, Detroit or do you got Toronto?
Well, look, we've talked about Scotty Barnes being an early favorite as far as the rookie of the year is concerned, and that's happened because he's had matchups already against guys who are otherwise considered top prospects. Evan Mobley, he had matchups against them in Cleveland, even though we unfortunately lost that game at the end. Scotty Barnes more than held his own. Jalen Suggs had the matchup against him with the Orlando Magic, one we did win, and the crowd went absolutely savage in that one. saying that Scotty's better. That was wild. But that's what we get in this Detroit matchup as well. Cade Cunningham, a guy, number one pick, a guy who was dealt with early on injuries, wasn't playing back to backs, has now really started to find his groove and is showing that he is also, in many ways, giving shades of like early Westbrook. The way he goes ahead and just absolutely crashes the boards, the way he's able to just get in there and beat you down. That is what's making him a lot different than a traditional kind of point guard that you would have thought you're getting at the top of the draft. So I'm really excited about the matchup. I do think Toronto has, the talent to be able to get past this game. Detroit, as much as Cade Cunningham is exciting, as much as Jeremy Grant has been a revelation for them, really still lack as far as consistent shot creation is concerned, and also just consistent outside shooting. It's Sadiq Bey or bust as far as their outside shooting is concerned. So that's what it comes down to. As long as you can go ahead and keep them quiet on the perimeter, not allow that to be a thing so that their inside game gets compromised, I think Toronto Raptors will walk away with a W on this one. And I'm looking forward to having that game at Scotiabank Arena tomorrow at 7:30.
Boom! Look at that. He just advertised for the game. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Another game that might be a lot of fun to watch: Miami against Utah. Really quickly, Miami Heat look very good. Tyler Herro, Kyle Lowry completely changing that whole identity of the team. Not to say that they weren't successful before, but they just look better. They look more polished, and everyone is buying into this situation. There was a little situation with the former MVP and another scrub of the league, who also happens to have a twin by the name of, I don't know if it was Marcus or if it was Markeith, but I do not care.
It was Markeith on Miami, but yes.
Good God. Anyway, the Miami Heat look good, and they could be contenders this year easily if this continues. Like, they have all the pieces. They do have all the pieces. And Utah Jazz, Donovan Mitchell. What more can I say?
Yeah, and it's not just Donovan Mitchell. I mean, in a Western Conference that at this moment looks pretty open, man. We are a bit, we don't really know who is going to end up on top in the West as far as the Western Conference is concerned. But the Utah Jazz has been the one team that has really looked like they could be the ones to take that reins. And it's been, a number of years where the Utah Jazz, frankly, have underperformed to where they should have been to be able to make deeper runs in playoffs. But this is the year where it's like, look, man, of all the teams that are dealing with adversity, this is one that has the continuity to be able to do that and go deeper than they've gotten past. And for them to continue doing that, they're going to have to come up against teams like Miami Heat, and that's what's going to be a matchup to watch, no doubt, when you get Donovan Mitchell on the floor with Jimmy Butler.
Yep, Jimmy Butler might not play. There is an ankle injury that he's dealing with, but he has a game time decision, so we'll see. Regardless, that is a game to look forward to tomorrow at 5 p.m. Sunday, Milwaukee Bucks, Atlanta Hawks. Looks like a good game. We also got Golden State and Charlotte. Another really good game.
That actually is one. Yeah, first and foremost, we talked about early candidates for Rookie of the Year, and that is in Scotty Barnes, that is in Evan Mobley, and we'll see how Cade Cunningham comes around. But if there is someone that has absolutely stamped their authority early season on most improved player, that is Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges on the Charlotte. Yeah. Oh, everything about the Charlotte Hornets was insane last year. The commentary was off the hook, but a guy who has gone ahead and taken that next step to someone who is a legitimate 1-2 punch with LaMelo Ball. Like, that chemistry is just a match made in heaven. It's just been absolutely insane. LaMelo himself has just continued to grow, continue to expand his game, and just in his second year already looks like he is going to be that superstar that we're all projecting him to be. But no superstar can do it alone. And in Miles Bridges, he may have potentially found the perfect running mate to be able to allow Charlotte to get themselves back into get themselves back for the first time ever, where the Charlotte Hornets can truly find themselves in a situation where they have a bright future to look forward to and also a bright now to watch, because that team, In the East, to me, obviously I'm a Toronto Raptors fan, but if I was to pick the most exciting team to watch in the East, the Charlotte Hornets would be the pick for me.
100%. And you can see that with some of the highlight dunks, Miles Bridges, LaMelo Ball, and who else dunked recently? That was really, really insane. Can't remember. But anyway, these guys are just exciting, and they're throwing down viciously. They're literally coming out with a plan. They're like, okay, today we're going to go on this person's head. Raise the roof on their heads is what I'm saying. Today, actually, I think, what's his name, had a windmill dunk, and then he gave it back to him. What's his name? Miles Bridges gave it back to him, but it was, I think, Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin went ahead, got really excited about this one windmill. Miles Bridges was like, I can do that, but better. So that was really cool. But yeah, Miles Bridges elevated his game. And I think one of the things that he's added, apart from just like the really, really good, consistent, play chemistry, whatever you want to call it, between those two guys, he's also expanded his range. So you also see him take, a couple threes here and there, and maybe not shooting them that great, but they're definitely keeping defenders in check, because if he trains 2 or 3, they got to respect it, right? Especially with the way that these guys move the ball around, a lot can happen. So really exciting. Check that game out. I mean, we already know Oubre is going to make a return to Golden State, play against his former team, where he didn't do so well. And actually, I think he's found a great group of guys that he's gonna roll with. Great game to watch.
Yeah, no, the Charlotte Hornets, as you said, have found depth in their squad, have got strength in the guards, have got strength in the forwards. It's going to be a fun team to watch throughout the year. We'll have to see if they can actually take that next step and get themselves into playoff contention this year, make a little bit of noise, because that's really where you earn your stripes and get yourself to the next level. But speaking of the next level, that's exactly what the Swing is looking to do this year, back in the groove, back in the swing of things. And this is just the beginning. I was sitting here November 12th, day after Remembrance Day, and we know you guys didn't forget about the Swing, but we had missed you all, and we're so glad to be able to get back here, get back on Sports Trends as always. And for those who are daily fantasy players, just remember that we're always sponsored by Thrive Fantasy as well, where you can go ahead and use the promo code SWING, get 100% of your deposit matched up to $50, and on every night make picks to go ahead and see, hey, is LaMelo going to drop a big double-double today? Is LeBron, when he gets back on the floor, going to be dropping 30 points? It's all about picking over-unders, and it's all about getting your lineup together and competing against players from all over the world to be able to win real cash prizes. And as a listener of The Swing, you get yourself off to a great start with Thrive Fantasy and using the promo code SWING. But until then, and until the next time That Guy Owais and HK get on the floor, just remember to keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves watching not only the Swing, keep yourselves committed to NBA basketball. And if you ever have any questions, any concerns, any feedback, engage with us, talk to us, get us involved in what's going on with your daily basketball life, because that's what HK and That Guy Owais are here for. And until then, we will see you on the Swing. Peace.
Lillard, long range three. Let's go. Defended by Simmons.